Turks, Cenk Uygur, and Kasparian with you guys. We really are different, man. Who starts the show with "Welcome to the Young Turks"? Here's another way that we're different. We do live play-by-play analysis of the Democratic and Republican conventions. We're gonna do it tonight again. So 9 to actually midnight, if you're a member, we go that deep and far. So tonight, Ben Dixon's on with me, do play-by-play. We had such a great time last night with John Iderell. It was so much fun. I think we're gonna do the same thing again tonight with Ben. Here's another way we're different. Tomorrow, not a big deal, Noam Chomsky on the show. So if you watched earlier today, just a half an hour ago, we had Cori Bush with a fantastic interview. Tomorrow, Noam Chomsky. So I think you guys are gonna love that. Unlike the New York Times, we allow him on our media network. Okay, and speaking of, well, he's too smart, but I know something that's too strong. Hold on. Okay, by the way, panic time. We're almost out of mugs already. If you buy 3 bags of Too Strong coffee, you get a free mug. Swear to God, we're almost out, okay? So toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. There is a little bit of panic in there. toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. They're handcrafting the coffee beans as we speak. All right, anyways, we'll talk more about that later, believe it or not.
Jake, come on.
We got great news. Let's do it, Casper. We got it.
Okay, thank God. All right. So coronavirus cases continue to surge in the United States, which is something that Trump should take ownership of since it is squarely his failure. But instead of taking responsibility, he's decided to point fingers at a country that's actually done extremely well in responding to coronavirus, and that's New Zealand. His latest attack is against New Zealand, a country that recorded just 9 new cases of coronavirus on Monday. Let's hear what he had to say.
The places that they were using to hold up, they're having a big surge. They're having and I don't want that. I don't want that. But they were holding up names of countries, and now they're saying, whoops. In fact, even New Zealand, you see what's going on in New Zealand. They beat it. They beat it. It was like front page. They beat it because they wanted to show me something. The problem is big surge in New Zealand. So, you know, it's terrible. We don't want that.
Now, of course, there is not a big surge in New Zealand. I mean, you could maybe technically refer to it as a big surge when you consider the several months New Zealand went without recording a single case of coronavirus. So if you consider 0 cases going to 9 cases, yeah, I guess big surge. But let's do some numbers. Let's look at the numbers and see where the United States is and where New Zealand, which is led by a competent person, is with coronavirus cases and deaths. So New Zealand, as I mentioned earlier, recorded just 9 new cases on Monday of this week. On Tuesday, 13 more were reported. The United States, where at least 173,000 people have died, has recently averaged around 50,000 new cases each day. Now, of course, the United States is a much bigger country. The population of New Zealand is around 5 million people. But even if you look at the numbers per capita, the United States is far worse than New Zealand. And guess what? The second they started recording new cases, they decided to shut things down again. That's what happens in, countries that are led by competent people with a competent electorate. Anyway, so the United States has just 4% of the world's population, by the way, but about 1/4 of global cases. So that's where the United States is. New Zealand has had just 22 total COVID-19 deaths. Until last week, the island nation went 102 days without recording a new coronavirus case. And by the way, let me just note that the United States has about 5.5 million confirmed cases of coronavirus. And yes, that number is likely to be an underestimate because there are plenty of people who haven't gotten tested but have the virus or didn't feel comfortable going to the doctor's office if they suspected they had the virus. There had been some stories about certain states suppressing the actual numbers of coronavirus cases as well. Florida being one of them because of course, Florida. And let's go to the Prime Minister of New Zealand to hear what she has to say. This is Jacinda Ardern.
Obviously, I don't think there's any comparison between New Zealand's current cluster and the tens of thousands of cases that are being seen daily in the United States. Obviously, every country is experiencing its own fight with COVID-19. It is a tricky virus, but not one where I would compare New Zealand's current status to the United States. Look, I think for anyone who's following COVID and its transmission globally, will quite easily see that New Zealand's 9 cases in a day does not compare to the United States' tens of thousands, and in fact does not compare to most countries in the real world. I'm not concerned about people misinterpreting our status.
There has never been a time in my life where I've been more embarrassed to be an American. I am embarrassed to be an American. This is embarrassing. Cenk, what do you think?
Yeah. So, all right, let's do compare and contrast. So, first thing that right wingers are going to say, because they think they're smart, Ben Shapiro told me that you're supposed to do it per capita. I don't know what that means, but I think you're supposed to do it. All right, no problem. Let's do it that way. Okay, and I agree. So, New Zealand has only about 5 million people. We have about 330 million people. So we're 66 times larger than New Zealand. So let's keep it in perspective. So they have had 22 deaths. So you got to multiply that by 66. 22 seems like a really low number. But when you multiply it by 66, it's 1,452 deaths if they had the same population as us. How many deaths have we had so far? We're almost at 175,000 deaths. 1,452 is substantially lower than 175,000. Okay, now I also did the same math when it comes to their new raging cases. Well, it's true that if you're jumping from 0 cases for 102 days straight to 9 cases, hey, wow, look at that. It really did pop up a lot, didn't it? But 9 times 66 is 858 cases if they were the size of America. How many cases do we have, as Anna just read to you? We have average around 50,000 cases every single day. So 858 is substantially lower than 50,000 cases. You know what that shows you? That shows you that Donald Trump has epic incompetence, and he just didn't do this right at all. The countries like New Zealand, and yes, even China and South Korea and Germany that did they did a couple of things that are super important, but 2 that really, really jump out. Number 1, everybody put on masks right away. There was no idiots going around, it's the freedom to get coronavirus and spread it into my ears, right? There was none of that garbage in smart countries because they don't have right-wing lunatics like to the degree that we do, and they wouldn't tolerate it. Look, China's got a lot of downsides and they're authoritarian, but one of the things was, yeah, you're gonna go outside in Wuhan when we're doing a lockdown? No, you're not. Are you gonna go outside without a mask? No. Not only do they arrest everybody outside who wasn't supposed to be outside at the height of their lockdown. I'm not saying we go that far, but this is how you take things seriously. Now, there was somebody that once didn't wear a mask while jogging outside. There was a foreigner. I think he was Australian or something. They kicked her out of the country immediately, evicted her from the country. Okay, so no, we're not dealing with that crap. So New Zealand, the second thing that they did was testing. Unbelievable amount of tests, okay? Now, we didn't do either one of those things. We had a leader who went like this. And
we're number 1.
We're number 1. Idiot that he is. So, but look, his main point was, I got to reopen the economy because the stock market's going to drive whether I win re-election. And I don't care how many of you die, I just want to win re-election. But you moron! We could have reopened the economy like all these other countries did months ago if you just done the masks and the testing earlier. So look, guys, I know a lot of folks don't know anything about the news, don't follow the news, and they just generally look at Trump and they go, I'm a Republican, he's a Republican, he hates brown people, I hate brown people. Let's move on, I'm voting for him. I got it, right? But if you know even 10% about what Trump has done, and you're proud of him, and you're proud of our 175,000 deaths, we lead the world in deaths, you're proud that we bungled this worse than Rwanda and Tajikistan, and literally every country in the world. Well, look, then you're proud of being a moron, and I don't want anything to do with you. So go and I can't stand that they walk amongst us, these idiots who ruined it for this country.
And look, of course, the worst part is that people who did not need to lose their lives during this pandemic have died, right? I gave you the numbers. It's a little over 173,000 people at this point. And the number is definitely likely to increase, especially when we're recording on average 50,000 new coronavirus cases each day. But I mean, for people who aren't persuaded by saving lives and you're only thinking about yourself and your individualism and how you just want to go out and have a good time. Sometimes, I mean, this is supposed to be American culture. It's really not, right? But American culture is supposed to indicate that if you work really hard, if you do what you need to do in the short term, that in the future, you can have a good time or you can get what you want, right? So in Wuhan, China, what are they doing right now? And look, let me just preface this by saying I'm not 100% trusting of the news coming out of Wuhan, China, but there are some images showing what the young people in Wuhan are doing right now. And here's a perfect example. Here's the Wuhan Maya Beach water park where people are water parking. They're having a good time. Do we have that picture? Okay, so let's go to that picture. And so apparently, China has combated the virus according to what we're seeing with our own eyes, with all these like massive parties and stuff. They've combated the virus to the point where people are comfortable going out, people are having a good time. Doesn't seem to be a giant issue, right? Again, massive caveat, there is some potential that China isn't being 100% honest with us here. But yeah, if you look at the images, they're just at crowded pool parties. And China took the virus seriously once they acknowledged the virus exists. So I don't really see them doing something as counterproductive as allowing like massive water park parties to happen if people are still spreading that virus in their country.
Yeah, look, so Trump, everyone's always, we don't like this. Always take what the Chinese government says with a grain of salt. I know I don't trust that they're being perfectly honest. Of course not. But there are real facts coming out of there from time to time. And one thing that is undeniable is there's no way that authoritarian Chinese government is going to allow for a massive pool party with thousands of people in Wuhan if they think there's an outbreak. They'd rather send everyone there to a gulag than let them go to a party like that. So they have not had cases in Wuhan for a long time. You know how many tests they did in the beginning in just that province? 6.5 million. That was like 6 months ago. 6.5 million in one province. Donald Trump's like, we're doing a lot of testing. And so we have a lot of cases because we do a lot of testing. No, we're not doing nearly enough testing. And we have massive cases because you took none of the right precautions. Right now, we could be like people, these right wingers haven't convinced their head through because of idiots like Tucker Carlson and Trump that the left wing somehow likes to be locked up in their house and doesn't want to go to restaurants and go into pools in the middle of the summer. No, we all want that. We all want a good economy. We all want our businesses to flourish, right? And we're trying to tell you, right wingers, you can get there quicker if you follow science. But if you're an idiot, it's gonna take way longer and a lot more people are gonna die. I'm gonna go to Ashkan, one of our members. He said, Cenk, the population of America is to blame for as well for being science deniers. In New Zealand, my guess is their population is probably more rational. This shows America is dumb. Let me explain one quick thing about that. I don't accept that for the whole country, but there's the right wing in this country, there's right wing in every country, right? They're more traditionalist, more in favor of the status quo. They don't want things to change. That's why they're conservative. And hence they stick to wrong heritage and wrong traditions throughout the world in all these different countries for conservatives. But in America, Fox News has built a culture of stupidity where they celebrate their stupidity. So I don't know the right wing in New Zealand or South Korea nearly as well, but I would be shocked if their right wing says, no, you should not believe in science. 2 + 2 does not equal 4. You don't have to wear masks. There is no such thing as evolution, and there is no such thing as climate change. No, that is unique to America. America's right wing has chosen stupidity, and they built a culture around it. So we shouldn't be surprised that about 35% of this country is off their rocker, and that's why we've become a third world country that has done far worse than literally every country on the planet in dealing with coronavirus cases. By the way, I love Ashkan's comment and all of your comments. And if you want to be a member, get your comments right on the air, tyt.com/join.
Well, I want to reset to talk a little bit about some of the denial coming from other members of the Trump administration in regard to how bad coronavirus really is in the United States. So Donald Trump's son-in-law and top advisor, Jared Kushner, was on Wolf Blitzer's CNN program recently to basically message to the world that he thinks that the Trump administration has done an awesome job in responding to this pandemic, even as 173,000 Americans have needlessly died due to their incompetence. Let's take a look.
The United States has been averaging about 1,000 deaths a day over these past several weeks. Italy has been averaging about 3 deaths a day over these past few weeks. They're clearly on a much better track than we are. I want to play a clip, but this is a prediction you made back in April about the US recovery. I want you to listen. I want to get your response. Listen to this.
I think you'll see by June a lot of the country should be back to normal, and the hope is that by July the country's really rocking again. And federal government rose to the challenge, and this is a great success story.
All right, so we're past July, obviously. More than 170,000 Americans are now dead from this pandemic over the past 5 or 6 months. Are 170,000 dead Americans, would you still suggest that this has been a success story?
Yes, look, there was a lot of challenges. This has been a global pandemic, a lot of unprecedented challenges. Again, the first phase of it, people didn't know what to expect. A lot of it was happening in different states. The president was able to rush the supplies that we needed. Now we're in the middle phase. If you look at the economy, which is what I was referring to, we were in a position where the entire economy was locked down, and President Trump passed the first stimulus. He did a lot of interventions. Our economy contracted by much less than our European counterparts who may have done different things in different ways. And what we've been able to do is have a very strong rebound.
I mean, look, if you were teaching a course on gaslighting, that video would be the best example, right? I mean, Wolf Blitzer goes through the statistics, talks about the numbers of people who have died as a result of the incompetence by the Trump administration, and then asks, is this a success story? And Kushner says yes. Kushner says yes. No, everything's great. Nothing to see here. People are dying, 50,000 new cases of coronavirus in this country every single day, but we're rocking it. Unbelievable.
We've had the equivalent of 62 9/11s. We have the equivalent of a 9/11 every 3 days. And I'm not talking about cases, I'm talking about deaths. Deaths, okay? We're at about 175,000 deaths right now. And we lead the world in deaths. And name a metric regarding coronavirus, we're at rock bottom. So this talk of like, hey, I wonder if America is slipping away from being a leading country or the top country, the first world. I forget first world. We're number one, right? No, you guys aren't getting it. We're worse than every third world country when it comes to how we handle coronavirus. That's a fact. It's backed up by numbers. We've lost more people per capita than almost any country in the world. There's over 200 countries. We're rock bottom. That is where Donald Trump has brought us. Remember when he said we'd win so much we'd get tired of winning? I don't know about you, I'm not awfully tired of winning. I'm tired of dying. That's what's happening in this country because of his epic incompetence. And he sends that buffoon Jared Kushner out there like, my dad bribed me into Harvard, and so I know that numbers don't really work. Except dollars work, but numbers don't work. That's why, by the way, Jared Kushner made the worst real estate deal literally in American history in New York. And so this dummy is sent out as the smart guy from the Trump administration to go, yes, leading the world in cases and deaths is such a great show of success. Now remember, Wolf, you have to remember, earlier we had massacres of 2,500 people per day. Now it's down to 1,000 people being killed every single day because of our incompetence. So I call that success. I call you a moron and an unbelievably evil guy. I don't even believe Trump administration is making me believe in evil.
Welcome to reality, Cenk. Like you just came to that conclusion.
No,
like how did you?
like my philosophical thoughts on evil is a long conversation, which you definitely don't want to get into. But but generally people act out of self-interest, and it's just a question of how self-interested you are. But Kushner and Trump and those guys are so over the top on only caring about themselves and having 0% empathy for all these people who've lost their lives and all the people who've lost their parents, etc. That if that isn't evil, then there certainly is no evil in the world.
Okay, maybe one day we'll get into that long philosophical conversation. My viewpoint is actually pretty clear cut. Evil exists. We're experiencing it right now. And unfortunately, every single day under this administration. We have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to discuss, the terrible situation that teachers are finding themselves in amid this pandemic. They can't even open their doors to circulate air, and we'll give you the shocking reason why when we return.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. I'm going right to the members' comments. Chance writes in, I'm in the PRC, People's Republic of China. It's wide open, but we still have to wear masks when indoors and outdoors, but the schools are open, all the stores are open, and we get temperature checks before boarding bullet trains. There is no sense that there's a pandemic here, but the country is not allowing any foreigners into the country, though. And they're right. I mean, America, if you don't know, and a lot of Americans don't know because they don't travel outside the country. We're banned nearly everywhere. There's only a couple of countries where Americans are allowed now. Like Mexico, ironically, allows us as we're trying to build a wall between us, and Turkey allows us, and like 4 other countries. We're banned in the rest of the world. You know why? Because we're literally diseased. No, but that's true. And that's the state that America is in because of Trump. All right, Hammer Dan writes in, the stock market is an independent player reflecting the pocketbooks of corporations and the super rich. Tired of the stock market as a metric. How about homelessness numbers as a metric always referred to? I love that comment because of the last sentence. If you told cable news anchors and producers, hey, every time you show the stock market, you should also show the number of homeless. Is it rising? Is it dipping? How are we doing? They'd laugh you out of the building. They're homeless. Why would we show the homeless? Who cares? Exactly, you monsters. Anyway, Sage Slytherin writes in, these are all TYT members, tyt.com/join to become a member and get your comments read first. Sage writes in, love the coverage of the DNC last night, a brutally honest critique of the entire spectacle the DNC is putting on. And the only way I could bear to watch without throwing up was because of Cenk and John. I'm especially looking forward to tonight with Ben. Yes, tonight, Ben Dixon, 9 o'clock to midnight. Don't miss it right here, tyt.com/live. So looking forward to doing it with Ben tonight. Hey, we got a new YouTube channel member, Terry Anderson, signed up during the show. I love it. I'm going to start reading your names going forward if you're signing up on YouTube. Speaking of which, on Super Chat, Trilamy says, how about some TYT for us non-coffee drinkers?
Oh, why are you giving him ideas?
By the way, you missed it earlier. These mugs, if you buy 3 bags of coffee, you get a free mug. Panic time. We're almost out of mugs. So 2 strong coffee, TwoStrongCoffee.com/TYT, TwoStrongCoffee.com/TYT. And then Brento says, Canadian here, please vote out Trump so that America stops infecting our nation so much. Anyone else, 2020. So that's Brento on YouTube Super Chat. And last one is from Twitch. Mr. Nick 67 resub for the third month with Prime, saying Too Strong Coffee, no way, like TYT, it only makes us stronger. It's true. I mean, you look at me, right? If this is me amped up on Too Strong Coffee, you know it works. All right, Casper, what's up?
All right. Teachers are trying to grapple with the very real threat posed by mass shooters in a country that's swimming with guns and the coronavirus pandemic. So these two very serious issues are causing quite a bit of a conflict, and a New York Magazine reporter really summarized it well through a tweet. So let me share that tweet with you. He writes that just heard from a teacher friend prepping for the school year. They've been told they can't leave classroom doors open to promote better air circulation because that would circumvent the school's automatic locking system that's in place for active shooter situations. So look, this active shooter situations have been a very serious problem in the country. And when the pandemic began, there was a gun buying spree in the United States. And I want to share some of those numbers with you before you jump in, Cenk. So for instance, Fox Business actually reported months ago that gun sales in April of this year spiked more than 70% from the previous year, with the purchase of more than 1.7 million firearms. 1.7 million firearms were purchased in the United States in April, okay? And this is after we already had a problem with mass shooters in this country. The number of gun deaths trended higher during the peak coronavirus outbreak period of March through the Memorial Day weekend in May than during the comparable time frame in 2019. This resulted in 354 additional firearm deaths. So this is according to research done by Every Town, and this is not the first study I've seen on it. Gun violence has increased in the United States during this pandemic, not school shootings because schools have been shut down for the most part, but overall gun violence has increased because what happens? You have more guns, you're gonna have more people using those guns, and you're gonna have more gun violence. And this graph gives you a little sense of that. So if you look at this graph at the bottom where you see the dotted lines, those represent the number of gun deaths, gun deaths and gun deaths in 2019 and 2020. And you can see how much the numbers have increased in 2019 and 2020. For instance, there's been far more gun injuries. There's a huge spike in gun injuries in 2020. And there's also, still like a pretty significant number of gun deaths. Like it's starting to spike up, during May, but this isn't a full graph. I'm really curious to see how the numbers have trended in recent months.
Yeah, so look, there's a couple of different issues here. First on the guns, it's a really sad state of affairs that we now say like, well, on the upside, because we're all locked down because of a pandemic that has killed 175,000 Americans, we've had less mass shootings. Boy, man, that is damning with faint praise. But a really important thing is the graph that Anna just showed you, because what have we told you 1,000 times in the show? It's not just the mass shootings. What's a bigger problem with guns is just having them in the house. So what's our immediate reflex as Americans? Whenever there's any kind of trouble, buy guns. Guns is the answer. I forgot the question, right? But when you have more guns inside people's houses and they're locked up in the house, I don't mean the guns, the people are. They use it on each other and they use it on themselves. So the number of gun deaths continues to rise. In a house where there is no gun, you are very, 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 very unlikely to have a gun death. In a house where there's a gun, you're far more likely to have a gun death. Every chart, every fact, every stat shows that. So again, we have a culture of stupidity in this country where the right wing have convinced themselves guns don't kill people. Bullets are just fairy dust and they sprinkle rainbows on you. And it's not a big deal to have guns, even though every stat says that guns lead to more deaths. Not intruders, you. Oh no, I don't believe it. Okay, and there we are. For the 1,000th time in a row we showed. But that story about how the schools can't do enough circulation and open the doors during coronavirus because they're worried about mass shooters. I mean, that is the perfect description of America in 2020. And guys, we've become a third world country. We're dead last in coronavirus deaths in terms of how we've treated this pandemic. And we're worse than every third world country. So how did we get here? We got here through two things. One is the right-wing culture of stupidity that celebrates dumber and dumber presidents. Reagan, not dumb enough. We go to Bush. Oh my God, he's incredibly dumb. Not dumb enough. Let's go dumber. Let's go to Trump. And today, after seeing his monumental stupidity for 5 years straight, 35 to 40% of the country is giddily ready to vote for him. Can't wait. Okay, so that's number one. And the other two is the monstrous establishment. And they just think like, hey, we got a boogeyman here in Donald Trump, so we have no responsibility. No, you didn't pass a single law regulating guns. Not a single law. For what, how long now? 2 decades? Why? Oh, money. I want the money. The Republican Party wants the money from the NRA. Remember, the Democratic Party used to take the money from the NRA. But they don't challenge the Republicans for taking money from the NRA because the Democratic Party takes money from oil companies, bankers, healthcare companies. It's the corruption, stupid. How much do we have to devolve? How much do our kids and our parents have to die before someone in this country goes, enough with the corruption and the stupidity. For God's sake, let's do reform.
Well, let's switch gears and talk about some of the aftermath of the first night of the Democratic National Convention. So the first night of the Democratic National Convention featured Michelle Obama as the headline speaker. And, her speech was good, but the way everything is treated in the United States seems to be extreme and binary. You either absolutely loved it was the best speech she's ever given, or it was awful, right? And I think the two ways that her speech were treated were represented by Donald Trump and MSNBC. Now, before we get to that, I do want to show a few snippets of her speech. It's available in its entirety online. You should check it out. But let's take a look at the first video and you can judge for yourselves.
Let me be as honest and clear as I possibly can. Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is. Now, I understand that my message won't be heard by some people. We live in a nation that is deeply divided, and I am a Black woman speaking at the Democratic Convention. But enough of you know me by now. You know that I tell you exactly what I'm feeling. You know I hate politics, but you also know that I care about this nation. You know how much I care about all of our children. So if you take one thing from my words tonight, it is this. If you think things cannot possibly get worse, trust me, they can and they will if we don't make a change in this election.
So, one of the better lines in her speech was her referencing Trump's flippant, callous attitude toward the number of people who had died from coronavirus. This was during an interview with Axios where he was asked about the high numbers of people who were dying from the virus in the United States. And his response was, it is what it is. So a lot of people were like, whoa, zinger. And I like that. Okay, that's good. That's good. It's good that she did that. And I thought the speech was fine. But of course, Donald Trump is going to respond the way that Donald Trump would respond. And we got a little taste of that today. So why don't we skip ahead to Trump's video next?
Michelle Obama's speech last night where she said that you're in over your head and the wrong president.
Yeah, no, she was over her head. And frankly, she should have made the speech live, which she didn't do. She taped it. And it was not only taped, it was taped a long time ago because she had the wrong deaths. She didn't even mention the vice presidential candidate. in the speech, and she gets these fawning reviews. If you gave a real review, it wouldn't be so fawning. I thought it was a very divisive speech, extremely divisive. We have a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for my campaign. No, I thought her speech was very divisive. And frankly, I wouldn't even be here if it weren't for Barack Obama. See, we're standing in the White House. I wouldn't be in the White House except for Barack Obama, because they did a bad job, Biden and Obama. And if they did a good job, I wouldn't be here.
So that very last part, I think there's a little bit of truth to that. I think that there was some backlash toward the Obama administration, which led to someone like Donald Trump. But everything else Trump said was absolutely ridiculous. There literally hasn't been a president who's more divisive and hateful and callous as Donald Trump is. I mean, he flaunts his sociopathic tendencies on a regular basis. He shows how little he values human lives on a daily basis. He proudly boasts about his incompetence on a daily basis. I mean, to accuse anyone else of giving a divisive speech is ridiculous, but I will admit this one thing. Democrats had this weird ideology about, well, we need to be buttoned up and we need to be pearl clutchers and that's gonna go over well. That's how we're gonna win. No, you're not gonna win that way. You have to fight back. And I am happy to see them use some of the rhetoric that's necessary to fight back against Trump. But her speech was good. I just think that what we're about to see with MSNBC in a minute goes a little overboard in the praise. But Cenk, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, so look, we covered this live last night. We're covering every night of the DNC and RNC. So 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern. Come right back here, tyt.com/live or youtube.com/tyt. And so last night, John and I covered this. And I thought, that was a really pretty good speech. Sometimes a little emotionally overwrought. They're all reading from prompters, and they're all to some degree actors and actresses. But it was overall well delivered, 7.5 out of 10, and way better than the professional politicians like Klobuchar and Gretchen Whitmer. And it depends on your cup of tea. Like Bernie had policy, he had stats, he had a better argument, I think, for voting against Trump. But he was not as emotionally moving as Michelle Obama was. So if you said it was the best speech of the night, I wouldn't really argue with you. Of course, now MSNBC has to go over the top, and they say it's not a 7.5 out of 10, it's a 12 out of 10, which we'll get to in a second. So I'm ready to say, well, guys, calm down, okay? It was a fine speech. She still talked about going high. Oh, for God's sake, stop it, right? But at least she said that Trump is in over his head. And I know that that's gonna get under his skin, not just because she's an Obama, because she's an African-American woman telling him he's not smart enough to lead. I wish she was even more direct about that, but I love the reference overall. But just as I'm thinking that there is an overreaction from the mainstream who's just in love with royalty of any sort in America, especially Democratic establishment royalty, Trump comes along and of course punches himself in the face. No, I didn't like it. It was very divisive. Are you kidding me? You're gonna complain about divisive? I can't stand it anymore. When any Republican cries about how Democrats attack them too much and they're uncivil, oh, please. And a bunch of Republicans today, Gretchen Whitmer, we'll talk about it later in the postgame if you're a member, tyt.com/join to become a member. Anyway, about how she had a hot mic moment and cursed. They're like, she's so low class. Trump is your leader. How could you possibly say anyone else is low class or divisive? And then Trump then goes in and says, no, she got the numbers wrong. Okay, how did she get the numbers wrong? She said it was over 150,000 and now it's over 170,000 dead. Even if she recorded it, a week, 2 weeks ago, 2 days ago, you've piled so many dead bodies onto America, Donald Trump, that you're criticizing Michelle Obama for not being able to keep count of how many people died under your watch. Oh, please. Literally the world's worst critique I have ever seen.
So the other side of this is how MSNBC responded to it. So let's just take a quick look at that video.
Scariest moment of the night. If you think things cannot possibly get worse, trust me, they can and they will. if we don't make a change in this election. Michelle Obama does not talk like that.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
for her to have said that after saying, like, listen, whether or not you can hear me, I need to tell you something, having seen the presidency up close.
Yeah.
I mean, my heart dropped about 4 inches in my chest.
Yeah.
I mean, we did. We all got scared. We all got very quiet.
We were very quiet.
She delivered epic shade.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Was the line that Donald Trump had about deaths, and every single death, every single American life lost in this pandemic is the destruction of an entire family unit, of a universe, of a community, of a school, if it was a teacher, of a hospital, if it was a doctor. So for her to throw that back at him was elegant, but epic shade.
She said, I've been near the president. I've worked with Joe Biden. I've seen people who can do this. This man can't do it. And if he can't do it, it's going to get much worse for all of us. It is a really strong message. It helps Joe Biden. But I have to say, the part where she said, I don't even like politics.
Right.
She's like, I'm not even here because I even like politics. I'm here because I'm trying to save you. This is come with me if you want to live.
I mean, we are all goofballs, and the whole night we're all like, the whole time, and then Michelle Obama starts talking, and we're all like, none of us breathe for 18 minutes.
Well, Cenk, I can see why MSNBC tried to censor you because of your Obama criticism in 2011. That was amazing. That was an amazing panel discussion. That's all I'll say.
Yeah,
just calm down.
Why does anybody watch? You know what they're going to do. They're going to do Democratic talking points. Every single one of them, every single show, every single night. They're not going to cover the news, honestly. You know, everybody yells at Fox News, and they should. And MSNBC is not evil like Fox News, but do they do parrot talking points for a particular party in this country? 1 billion%. I mean, what was that? What was that like? Fandom. When Michelle Obama speaks, though, she's royalty. So we all we were so quiet when Bernie was speaking and everybody else was speaking. We didn't care. We were just chit chatting. But it's Michelle Obama. Oh, royalty. Okay. Okay. New Camelot. Okay. And then my heart dropped 4 inches. Oh, come on. All right, look, guys. And the other thing that drives me crazy is they act like what Michelle Obama said is news. Wait, why haven't you?
That's the thing. That's right. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's what got to me about it, right? Like, I thought it was a fine speech. She delivered it well. You know, I'm not trying to be overly critical of Michelle. I thought it was a fine speech. But like the way they handled it, you're right. It's like she said something revelatory. Like, she just stated the facts of like what we're dealing with, something that we've all known, something that they talk about on that show on a daily basis about Trump. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're making me go over the top. It's gross. It's just gross. It's just sucking up to people in power and like, can you believe she said Donald Trump is in over his head? Yeah, of course he's in over his head. Of course. And I celebrate that she said it because they're right in the sense that the establishment, Democratic establishment, including, yes, Michelle Obama, who came up with it, when they go low, we go high, and that's how we lost an election. Let's keep it real, which they would never do on MSNBC. So they're right that they play patty cakes all the time. They're like, someone said that Trump might not be competent. Oh, well, welcome to the goddamn party, man. Jesus Christ, you guys are late. Yeah, I mean, of course Trump's not competent. I thought what Michelle Obama said was fine, but like basically the minimum. She cleared the bar and almost no one else that night did. And so I'm appreciative of it, but if that is news to you and you think that's as tough as it gets and that makes your heart drop, oh my God. Then whatever you do not watch 1 minute of the Young Turks because your heart will explode. If you thought that was,
we got to take a break.
Okay. Oh my God, you ain't seen nothing yet then.
All right, Kasich versus AOC when we come back.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your active ID more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. You could win a free e-scooter. You want to tell you how? Wrong. You look it up. It's tyt.com/green summer. Now I'm going to members. Mickey C says, there it is, tyt.com/green summer. Mickey C says, LOL, we don't have to hear Michelle's speech again. We'll hear it next week when Melania speaks of the GOP. Zinger! Okay, that's the kind of member that I love. So that's tyt.com/join. Meanwhile, YouTube channel membership, Alex Brooks just signed up. So Alex, you're awesome, thank you. And Caroline Roberts says on YouTube Super Chat, got my We Press On shirt today. TYT lifts me up when I'm down. Caroline, you lift us up. We love it. tyt.com/go. And that helps keep us healthy and sustainable. And I hope that you are with Caroline. I think we're a light in the darkness. And if you give 127 or more, you get the Press On t-shirt like Caroline did. You guys are awesome. Let's do it. What's next, Anna?
All right, so John Kasich, a Republican who was invited to speak at the Democratic National Convention, took a few jabs at Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a progressive, during a recent interview with BuzzFeed News. Now, during that interview, he said, quote, I think both parties have to have new ideas, and I think this country is moderate. People on the extreme, whether they're on the left or on the right, they get outsized publicity that tends to define their party. Now, maybe he's not talking about AOC, except in the next line, he mentions her by name. You know, I listen to people all the time make these statements, and because AOC gets outsized publicity doesn't mean she represents the Democratic Party. She's just a part, just some member of it. And it's on both sides, whether it's Republicans or whether it's the Democrats. Now, AOC did respond to Kasich saying, quote, it's great that Kasich has woken up and realized the importance of supporting a Biden-Harris ticket. I hope he gets through to GOP voters. Yet also something tells me a Republican who fights against women's rights doesn't get to say who is or isn't representative of the Democratic Party. So AOC was responding to some anti-abortion legislation that was signed by Kasich when he was governor. That legislation actually banned abortion after 12 weeks. So it was one of the most restrictive, state laws coming in regard to women's reproductive rights. Now, Kasich also is known for being anti-labor. So, I hope that he doesn't represent the future of the Democratic Party or gets to choose what the future of the Democratic Party is. But let's talk about where Democratic voters stand on the issues. A CBS survey released on the eve of the convention asked Americans who they would like to hear address the convention. More than 2/3 wanted to hear Sanders, that's Bernie Sanders, and 63% were excited to hear Ocasio-Cortez. Just 38% were enthused about Kasich, the lowest number of any prospective speaker. Oops. Cenk.
Yeah. So look, I don't think the problem is John Kasich speaking. I obviously don't agree with him on the great majority of issues. But I think that as a matter of optics, having some prominent Republicans, including a guy who almost won the presidential race last time, Kasich almost was in the top 3 when Trump won in 2016 in the Republican primary. Having him speak at the DNC and saying, no, man, you got to vote for a Democrat this time around. It's panic time. That's not such a bad thing. That isn't the problem. The problem is that there should be 10 times as many progressives as Republicans at a Democratic convention. And by the way, that could mean, hey, you've got whatever the numbers are. You want to have 2 Republicans speak? Well, let's bring down the numbers. 8 progressives, 12 progressives, whatever it is. And you want to have 24 establishment people speak because they won the primary and the progressives didn't? Sure. But instead we get Bernie Sanders and look, there's Addie Barkan today We'll cover that live for you guys. Check that out right here on this channel. And he's a great progressive, and there's 60 seconds of AOC, but this is not nearly enough, right? And so it's disproportionate here. And they had 4 Republicans on the first night and 1 progressive. Well, that gives you a sense of where Joe Biden and establishment Democrats think the Democratic Party is. It's not that they're listening to any Republican or featuring any Republican, it's that they're listening to them and featuring them more than they do with half of their own party.
Because they like the messaging coming from Republicans like Kasich, messaging like the video you're about to see right here.
I know that Joe Biden, with his experience and his wisdom and his decency, can bring us together to help us find that better way. I'm sure there are Republicans and independents who couldn't imagine crossing over to support a Democrat. They fear Joe may turn sharp left and leave them behind. I don't believe that, because I know the measure of the man. It's reasonable, faithful, respectful. And you know, no one pushes Joe around.
So I have a huge problem with the way that the Biden campaign is handling their messaging, really, because on one hand, it's like they're super judgmental toward anyone on the left who's critical of what's coming out of that campaign, right? It's like, oh, how dare you? How dare you? You can't do that. You like Trump. You're voting for Trump. No, I think a lot of people will reluctantly vote for Biden, even if they don't agree with him 100% of the time. But how about you guys stop slapping progressives in the face over and over and over again, right? They're the ones who are, making all these provocative statements, stacking the convention with Republicans. And then if there's a little bit of criticism, they whine and cry about it and accuse progressives of trying to get Trump elected. No, I assure you, progressives do not want Trump elected. Okay, progressives would like you to stop being idiotic and stop slapping them in the face because they are part of the Democratic Party. Postgame is next, tyt.com/join to become a member. Lots of great stories for you there. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.